Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the January 15th meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I'm the president, Ken Salvat. The president-elect, Barbara Sexton-Smith, is celebrating her birthday today. We're happy to see her. She's not able to join us today because she's got a work commitment. This year is the United for Good year for Rotary, so hopefully we are continuing to do that. And then we learned this week that the next Rotary year, which starts in July, will be Create Lasting Impact. So they kind of flow together. Unite for Good and then Create Lasting Impact. So Barbara's going to have a fun year with that, I'm sure. Providing our invocation today, Corey Miller. He is the Executive Director of the Cabbage Patch Settlement House and Vice Chair of the Youth Education Unsung Heroes Committee.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we gather today as members of the Rotary Club, grateful for the opportunity to come together in fellowship and united by our shared commitment to service above self. We're thankful today for our featured guest, Dan Meske, whose leadership, passion, and vision have shaped young people for years through volleyball. In that sport, as in life, we see the importance of dedication and resilience and the courage to meet challenges directly. Volleyball is not a game of holding on, but of releasing, of rhythm, timing, and trust. It requires constant communication and shared responsibility, where success depends on each person doing their part for the good of the whole. These same values guide us as Rotarians in our work and service. Like the Cardinals, we strive to be champions, not for recognition, but for impact. And we seek to lift others up and build a stronger community. And so, Lord, bless this gathering, this meal, and our conversations, and help us to serve others with integrity and to lead with humility. And we pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Corey. And now to lead us in the pledge and vote before we test is Lee Ann Alsop. She's the development director at St. Children's Home.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now before we test.
Is the truth, is fair to all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Leanne. And Rotarians, if you have a guest with you today, please come to the microphone, introduce yourself and your guest, and give their name, role, and organization. Guests, please stand at your seat while you are introduced.
Professor at UofL, still business school, and I asked him how he wanted to be introduced, and he said he was using the alias Rotary for 40 years. So,
Good morning, Ken, and fellow Rotarian, and Marie's work at the University of Louisville. I have two guests with me today. First, Aaron Durbin with the Broker House Lending. He specializes in financing for investment properties. Izzy Nally with representing, you know these women for many things. Today they are representing one specific, so Izzy Nally with the Neuroplasticity Alliance, and Holly Hartman with Collab Intel.
President Ken, my name is Nick Garner with the MITRE Corporation. I have two guests with me today. My first guest is my dear friend Greg Capillo, one of my very first friends from Louisville. He is the new facilities coordinator at the Family Scholar House, and most importantly, my volleyball teammate. And my second guest today, if you could not tell from the look of his face, is my father, Wes Garner, My father is a lifelong entrepreneur and wore many hats, but I remember him most fondly for his business in the 70s building passive solar homes.
Welcome. We're going to standing as the Mother's Rotary table, and after the meeting, Craig Sherman will give you big others if you want to go over and learn more. Before I forget, a shout out to everybody that participated this morning in the Speakers Committee. Always great with Ashley's leadership, and we have a lot of good guests lined up for the rest of this year. So please come back and join us, special guests. We have a couple of Rotarians in the spotlight to celebrate. Congratulations to Letty Bailey Johnson on being selected as a cornerstone mentor for the Milestone Circles program at NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. This is a free 12-week program that helps U.S.-based founders build, scale, and lead with purpose. And congratulations to Go Holland, who was featured on a recent episode of Inside Louisville discussing development projects in New Loop, Portland, and Harmony, Kentucky. Please join us Wednesday, February 11th for our Rotary Enrichment Fair at the Kentucky Humane Society Sam Swope Pet TLC on Steedley Drive. Stop by any time between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. We'll have a free lunch from Salsarita beginning at 11:30. And as part of this service project, you can make enrichment treats and toys to keep animals stimulated, help with packing adoption folders, and prepping syringes for our vet team, and learn about our new animal and community campus. Great way to have fun while serving, help animals, meet other Rotarians, and make a direct impact on our community. Rotary Day of the Downs tickets are on sale. We'll be back at the Silks Balcony on Wednesday, April 29th. Scan the QR code for more information and to purchase tickets, or look for the link on our website homepage. Make sure you have marked your calendar for the Mayor's annual State of the City address to our club. It'll be Thursday, February 12th at the Kentucky Center for the Arts again. We'll also have a slightly later start time this year. We'll not provide lunch. A grab-and-go charcuterie snack cup will be available, as well as coffee and water. Be sure to register early, as we expect to reach max capacity. There'll be no walk-ins for this meeting. Thank you to those who've already submitted your 100 or more annual contribution to our local Rotary Fund, which provides financial support for our many service projects. Cliff Elgin has donated a bottle here for our first private label bourbon from Jackson Purchase Distillery, signed by Master Distiller Craig Dean. We'll draw the winner at our January 29th meeting from the names of all who have contributed $100 or more since July 1st. And you can scan the QR code on the screen or at the table to give cash or check to Deline. Check out the details and links for other events and opportunities on our website at LouisvilleRotary.org. If you haven't already, follow us online on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Last week, Barbara introduced the 26 and 27 officers and directors for the Rotary Fund of Louisville, which is our local foundation that helps fund the many service projects we lead or participate in each year. The officers of the fund board, which include chair-elect, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, are appointed based on roles in the club, and the 6 at-large directors, who will serve staggered 3-year terms, are selected by the club board upon nomination by the club's nominating committee. Last week, we heard from 2 of the at-large directors who will begin a 3-year term on July 1, Ann Manel, who will be continuing her service with a 2nd term, and Rensha Allen, a new at-large director who will serve a 3-year term. We will hear from 2 more today. Dazru Pry, who will serve a 1-year term, and Harry Lewis Seeger V, who will serve a 2-year term. And I'd like to invite both of them to come up now and share briefly about their Rotary experience and why they choose to serve on the fund board.
How's everyone doing? So it's been quite the journey over 6 years since I originally joined this club. I like to joke that through my own online research, I found out, what Rotary was, so I decided to show up to a meeting in 2020 at the Ali Center, and it was Chief Conrad that was the presenter. And I'm walking through the main door, and I see a gentleman that's greeting folks, and it's Mr. Barry Allen. I don't know if he's here today or not, but as I said, sir, is this Rotary? He's like, yes, it is. And I'm like, well, I'm interested in joining it. And then he jokingly said, are you lost? And I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm committed. But 6 years have gone by in a blink. I've participated with Salvation Army, Center Ministries, served on the Rotary Board for 2 years. And I consider it a great honor to be on the Rotary Fund Board and elected for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was introduced to the club by Kristen Boone, who I think is here today, a consummate community member who likes to get others involved in great things like Rotary. And two things really impressed me when I first joined. One was, wow, this is a room full of really great people who are civic-minded like I am, so I think I feel instantly at home. And then the second thing was doing some of the volunteering. Just was a great way to get out and get back to the community. 2.5 years into it, I'm just looking for more opportunities to get involved, and so serving on the fund board is a great way to do that. And it feels like a really great lift to it every week to be able to come in and participate. So happy to serve, and really great things ahead for us as an organization. So looking forward to meeting more people and getting involved in more volunteer opportunities with all of you. Thanks.
Guys, appreciate the voting. Louis, thanks for ringing the bells every week this year. Thanks to everyone who rang the bells. We don't have a final tally yet, but we know we did great, so that's all that matters. Also continuing terms as at-large directors are Dr. Susan Zepeda, 2 more years, and Michelle Black-White for another year. I appreciate all of you commitment to our mission. We have new members, just to prove some more today, actually, but I'd like to welcome today back to the podium Nick Garner, Software Development Lead with the Mitra Corp, Chair of our District Membership Committee and Vice Chair of our Club Membership Committee. So thank you for all these new members coming in. And you're an incoming club board member too. That'll be cool.
Thank you, President Kent. Would Andrew Bates, Matthew Brown, Charles Dukas, and Kristen Dunleavy please join me up front? Fellow Rotarians, we seek to grow our membership so that we may not only increase our impact and influence as a club, but also to extend the spirit of Rotary throughout our community. You have been elected to membership in our club because we believe you possess qualities that will lead you to exemplify the true spirit of Rotary and our 4-way test. You have been admitted not only to the 12th largest Rotary club in the world, but to a global organization of over 45,000 clubs, where you are welcome at any time. Rotary membership adds value to those who engage, whether by attending meetings and events, participating in service projects, or sharing your knowledge and talents as we live out our motto of service above self. It is my honor to induct you as new members of the Rotary Club of Louisville. I would now like to invite the sponsors, Ginger Wallace, David Graves, Joseph Yarby, Walt Kunow, Lou Seeger, and Mike Halwerda up to help with the official pin presentation.
So each new member will do a short introduction.
Yes. The sponsor does the introduction, right?
No, the active member gets to
Oh, the
introduce
new member,
himself.
oh, yeah. So each new member will now introduce themselves, yeah.
Wow, thank you. I'm sort of intimidated now. Okay.
Thank you all. I'm Kristen Dunleavy. I am a native to Louisville. However, my family did move out in the 70s to an outer county to a 24-acre hobby farm, I'll call it. And I call it a hobby farm because my parents were CPAs. So from there, I worked at their firm in high school, but I also worked there through college at the University of Louisville. I was a commuter, came here, got my bachelor's in mathematics with high honors, and I absolutely love this university. Now, I started my finance career, as I said, at my parents' firm in Taylorsville, Kentucky. But I moved back to Louisville in the early 2000s, and I was principal at an local investment advisory firm, and headed up the research department. I now have launched my own firm in investment management for retirement plans for employers. But I've also served the community. I've been on the board of directors. I'm honored to be on the board of directors of SOS, which I'm sure you all know a lot about. We're going to give our time to SOS soon. They'll package up things. I've also been in the executive leadership for Louisville Employee Benefit Council. I'm currently on the Government Affairs Committee for the National Association of Plan Advisors, and worked with our outgoing Senator Mitch McConnell on a package of law called Secure 2.0. But I can't leave the podium until I say, Thelma, my late mother-in-law, a huge Rotarian, Thelma Dunlapy, and in her honor I say.
Just present the pin.
Just present it. Thank you.
We're put it on.
Do that at your home.
Hi, I'm Charles Dukas. The last 20 years I spent with Kentucky Trailer, number of roles there. Last one, president of a truck body division, chief sales and marketing officer, EVP of some of our operating divisions where we have plants in Illinois, Michigan, service facility in California, one plant in Ireland, the Netherlands. So I always did developmental work there. My family's all from Louisville. My husband and I moved here in '85, $3 from Louisville now. And quite frankly, all the service work I've done in the past has been through church, and it's been easy, no stretch. The men's outdoor ministry, things I could do in my sleep. While at Kentucky Trailer, if you've ever heard of the book called The Servant, anyone heard of that book by chance, written by Jim Hunter? Excellent book. I've met with Jim on a number of occasions. We implemented that at Kentucky Trailer, but it was a component of our mission there. Well, what's really different about the Rotary, as I've come to realize, is it's the mission. It's the only mission. And I watched the work that some of my friends have done. I mean, Henry Heiser's list of accolades at the Rotary, Henry and I have known each other for, well, let's just say decades. We don't need to do the years. But his list is long, and you all know. And it's the same with Walt Kuno, his work at the West End School. And these are things I had no exposure to. And of course, they're so humble, they don't boast about it. You have to pull it out of them. But on that note, that's what I think makes Rotary different. I like to step out of my comfort zone. And I know, Walt, on February 3rd, there's a session at Western School, and need a hand, I'd like to give it a shot. Thank you very much for welcoming me to Rotary.
Hello, everyone. My name is Meske. I'm the founder and CEO of Neotech Solutions. We're an IT consulting firm, specializing in AI, cybersecurity, etc. Grew up here in Louisville, went to UK for college. I'm still a Cards fan though. But I have 6 beautiful daughters, so we love volleyball. So many clubs, schools, games, perfect segue, of course. But I'm a man of faith as well, and I'm excited to connect with more people and serve. Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bates. I work in the procurement division for Louisville Metro government. I've been with Louisville Metro for 28 years, but I've really only worked there for about 20 of those years because I've been going on multiple military leaves of absence as an officer in the Kentucky National Guard, including a couple of deployments to Afghanistan, but most recently, I had the great honor to be the general in charge of operations for NATO Multinational Corps Northeast in Poland. So I lived in Poland for a year, and that was an amazing assignment, but it was also my last one. I came home and retired from the Kentucky National Guard as a Brigadier General in September. And so then I had something I'm not used to, which is a little free time. So I was looking for some other ways to serve the community, and so here I am. I'm also on the board of directors for the Belknap Neighborhood Association, led by Colonel Wallace, and I'm on the board of a small organization I helped to establish about 10 years ago called Nerd Louisville. In case you thought you heard it wrong, Nerd Louisville. But it's still going strong. I'm pretty proud of it. Is anybody here deliver Meals on Wheels? In the last, if so, you probably know my wife, Tiffany Woodson. She was the volunteer coordinator for Meals on Wheels for a number of years, but she's now moved on. She works for the Kentucky State Police as a civilian driver tester at Bowman Field. So she's keeping our roads safe, one crying teenager at a time. We have 5 boys between us. The oldest is 33, the youngest is 13. The 2 youngest are still at home, of course. One goes to Atherton, the other goes to Highland Middle. It's great to be here. Thanks for the warm welcome.
Welcome to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. All right, each week we recognize our other new members from the past year. So if you will all stand, and the new members that we just met can meet some of the other new members in our club. Okay, we're so particularly try to connect with the other new members who are in the same situation you are. We get a lot of new members. That's why we started to recognize them this year at our meetings. But we also have some longer-term members. One of those happens to be our executive director, who is celebrating an anniversary this month. January of 2020, before the world ended, she joined Rotary. And she's a director with us, and also a part Harris Fellow +1, and she's going to share a couple of minutes, as we do each week, talking about her journey and reason for being a Rotary.
All right, this is super weird, y'all. Okay, I'm going to try to be quick. I'm going to put your speed listening ears on because I'm going to talk really fast. So I'm a native Texan. I moved here when I was a baby. My parents brought me here when I was a baby to Clarksville, Indiana. I went to Borden High School. So when people ask me where did you go to high school, that's not one that's really recognized. But maybe a few of you know where Borden, Indiana is. We had 45 people in my graduating class. I went from there to IU Southeast, my first year of school. I was a computer science major and had plans to be a computer science and accounting double major, and that ended up shifting just into accounting. When I was 17, my parents decided to move back to Texas to help care for their elderly parents, and so I transferred to the University of Texas at Austin, Hook 'em horns and got my accounting degree there. I moved to Dallas and started my career at Arthur Anderson, which back in the day used to be one of the big 8 accounting firms. And was there a couple of years and then went out into industry, became a CFO for a large physician recruiting firm. And while I was there, I helped launch several companies. One became an Inc. 500 company with 572% growth. We launched a equipment leasing company, a magazine publishing company, several temporary staffing firms. And so that was a great experience. I was back in town for the holidays and ran into a childhood sweetheart. This was in '97. So he convinced me to move back. We got married. I went to work for Macaulay Nicholas and Company over in southern Indiana and did a little bit of tax, a little bit of audit, and a little bit of small business consulting. And then the firm announced that they were going to be building an office, a Class A 5-story office building, and to combine their offices. And then they would be on the top 2 floors and lease out the bottom 3 floors. So I raised my hand. It sounded like a great project and agreed to oversee the construction and development of that building. And then once that was complete, we merged our offices. They created a firm administrator role, and I did that. And then I had a baby during that time and decided I wanted to work a little bit less, and so I narrowed my focus to human resources and marketing, a couple of extrovert type roles that most accountants don't really relish. I did some, as part of that, I did some national and international speaking in Las Vegas, in the Dominican Republic, several different places, primarily on ways for introverts to engage and develop and nurture strong relationships online, using direct messaging and some of the, primarily LinkedIn. I was recruited to DMLO Doing One in 2012, which is where I was at when I joined Rotary in 2020. Lewis and I both joined in January 2020, right before everything shut down. I didn't get oriented, I didn't get a pen or inducted, I didn't get to know anyone when we went virtual. Julie Schmidt asked me to join the speakers committee, which I did, and then Jean West, when she took over in July, asked me to chair the speakers committee, and that same month, both our full-time office staff resigned. So we had no one in the office. So I just stepped in as a volunteer to try to keep things going, meeting RSVPs, meals, all the things, right? Because I had all these great speakers lined up, and I really didn't want us to fall on our face. The search committee recently started a search led by Walt Kuno, and I was asked to put in my resume. Do we have another microphone? This one is cutting out. So I did that, and I joined Rotary primarily because I was a founding board member of Canopy back in 2018, and if you're familiar with Canopy, you know that the mission is making Kentucky first in good business, and all about using business as a force for good. And Rotary does that. That's what we're about, right? We're a bunch of business people, professionals, who try to use our resources and our actions as a force for good in our community and around the world. So that's why I'm at Rotary. I ended up getting selected as the executive director and began that role in November of 2021, and I have been there since.
Thank you, Deline. All right, on to our speaker today, Dan Meske. He just wins. As an associate head coach of the Louisville women's volleyball team from 2017 to 2024, he helped the Cardinals earn a pair of NCAA national runner-up finishes, 3 national semifinal appearances, 6 regional semifinals, 4 ACC titles, and became the first male to win the American Volleyball Coaches Association Assistant Coach of the Year in 2022. Last year, his first as Louisville's head coach, Dan won 16 of 20 ACC games and 26 of 33 overall, leading the Cards to the NCAA regional semifinals again last month. And the Cards We're up 2 games to none in that semifinal, and we're within a few points of a sweep of Texas A&M and advancing to the Final Four when the Aggies staged an incredible rally with volleys that were epic. This was not a Louisville meltdown, this was an Aggie onslaught. It knocked the Cardinals out, and then they went on to beat the undefeated Nebraska Cornhuskers and former Cards coach Danny Busboom Kelly, and then they swept Kentucky to win the national championship. So technically, I think we're the runners-up. Before coming to Louisville, Dan won 45 games in 2 seasons as the head coach of Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, after helping the University of Nebraska win 216 games in his 8 years there as a grad assistant, volunteer assistant, and assistant coach. And Dan was a 3-time academic All-Big Ten volleyball player at Ohio State, leading the Buckeyes to a national semifinal appearance in 2005. He looks like he can still play. I've had the privilege of seeing him conduct some practices through the years, and he is a special coach. He and his wife Laurel have 3 sons, Ryan, Maddox, and Hendricks, who I just learned are all named after Chicago Cubs players. You have to be happy, Dan, with the Cubs off season. Kind of heated up this week. They're going to be tough to beat, but the Reds are still going to beat them. Dan Meske.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. And for those that are in athletics, which I have been my whole life, ever since I graduated Ohio State, I went right to Nebraska, and I've been in college athletics. I say jokingly, I've never had a real job, like a lot of you guys do. But there's wins and losses that go with that. It's an interesting introduction to say all he does is win, because I do think when you're a competitor, I certainly can remember the losses a lot more vividly than the wins. And those are the ones that I think about at night, and I'm always trying to get better and always trying to learn from. And then speaking of Augustana, which is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, it's a full circle moment when you mentioned that. The first ever speaking engagement I was honored enough to be invited to do was the Rotary Club in Sioux Falls. And they had 3 tables. It wasn't quite as big, it was in a very small room. But it's a very full circle moment for me to be able to spend some time with you all, and the stories everybody tells, and just the people that are in this room, everybody who's devoted to learning and growing and serving the community is just very, very humbling for me, and it's very motivating for me as well, because I get to do a small piece of that with the cards that you guys see and the great people that we get to coach and they learn and become these great people in the community as well. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got to where I'm at, a little bit about our year, and then what we have moving forward. And then if you have some questions, that's my favorite part. So nothing's off limits. So there's a lot of changing landscape in the NCAA, so fire away. One thing I'll talk about with our organization is we build trust with transparency. I'm probably too transparent to a fault, but that's the only way that I know how to operate. It serves our organization really, really well. Speaking of 2005, I think I was a sophomore that year. That was the year we went to the semi when I was in college. Graduated in 07, and it was interesting reflecting back. I've been doing this now close to 20 years. My first ever job was with the University of Nebraska. I was a graduate assistant. And the University of Nebraska, at the time, and arguably now, is maybe kind of what used to be the Alabama football of volleyball. I mean, they were just most funded, most support, always top recruits. And so I'm coming from the men's side, and I don't know anything about women's volleyball. There's just way more support, way more opportunities coaching. So I knew, okay, I want to coach. I'm going to go into the women's side. So I walk into Nebraska. They lost the national championship in 2006. They returned the entire team. Watch your foot. I'm going to drop some names here. So they had Christina Hotelling was the National Player of the Year in 2005. She's back as a senior. They had Sarah Padman, who was the National Player of the Year in 2006. She's back. She's a senior. And a sophomore on that team will turn out to be the greatest volleyball player of all time, Jordan Larson, was on that team. So if you have one of those players, you're talking about trying to win it all. We had 3. And so I walked in and I was like, this is easy. Like, look at this. Roll the balls out there, and we smoked everybody all year. and we go to the Sweet 16, which was the round that we got bounced this year. And we go down 0-2 to a Michigan State team who, I can't even name a player on that team, but they had something going. And we were able to come back and win that in 5. And then the next night, it kind of came to collect, and we lost to a Cal team that ended up losing the national championship. It was, at that point, probably one of the biggest upsets that's ever happened in volleyball. It probably got trumped by Texas A&M beating Nebraska after they beat us as one of the bigger upsets. But that was my first lesson in coaching, how important culture is. Because that team had a great collection of talent, had a great collection of players, but there were players that, during the All-American banquet were crying because, so-and-so was the player of the year, and it was, a lot of me, and not so much the we. And it was very, very telling how fun coaching is going to be. Because again, for the first 2-3 months that I was there, I thought, man, this is easy. I mean, we absolutely slaughtered everybody that we played. And then when things got tight, I said, oh man, coaching and culture matters a lot. So I've been intrigued with it ever since. Spent 8 years there, and then went on, was a full-time assistant, and then went to Augustana Division II. And honestly, my time at Nebraska, it burned me out a little bit at the Division I level. The way our organization was run was very, very cutthroat. It was very transactional. And it was my first introduction into coaching, and we were very good. So I had this correlation of, you have to be a certain way. You have to act a certain way if you're the boss or if you're in charge to the people that, are in your charge. And then you win. And I made this correlation really strong young in my career. And I said, this isn't very fun. And so I said, I do this for a living, volleyball. I got into it because it was fun. I didn't get into it because I thought it was a job or anything. So I wanted it to be fun. So I went to Augustana Division II. It was a very kind of weird move at the time, but I wanted to rediscover my love of the game. And I had 2 great years at Division II, Augustana in South Dakota. Danny Busboom Kelly, 2 years after that, me and her worked together for a number of years in Nebraska, gets the job at Louisville. And her and I are very, very, very similar personalities, and we see things very similar of how we want to be successful, how we want to win, how we want to work in an organization. And she comes to South Dakota. She says, I got to recruit in South Dakota. Can I stay with you and your wife? I said, yeah, sure, we got the basement, come on. So she comes up, and she brings my favorite meal from Lincoln, Nebraska at the time. It was this ramen place, and she brought like 4 orders of it. Brings it in, and I'm like, this is not normal. And so she goes, hey, I got you all this. And she goes, I'm getting the job at Louisville, and I really want you to come. And I was like, I'm not into it. I'm kind of burned out on D1. I know you're going to be great. Like, that's not it. Like, it's not about winning. And she goes, okay. And she goes, well, my wife's name's Laurel. She goes, where's Laurel? I said, she talks to Laurel. 5 minutes later, we're booking a flight to come out to Louisville. That's part of the reason Danny was so successful. He was a great recruiter. So she said, listen, I don't need to talk to you. I need to talk to your wife. And so she was a big driving force of why we came out to Louisville. But I had no reservations about taking the job at Louisville because I knew, I knew how talented she was. I knew we played off of each other's strengths and weaknesses so well. I knew it was just a a matter of time. For me, it was more the outside of volleyball. How fulfilled could you be, in all that you do? And I didn't know much about Louisville, and this place has really taken us in. At the time, we only had one of our 3 kids. We had 2 since we've been here. So I proudly say I'm from Louisville. I've only been here about a decade, but I proudly say that I'm from here. So anyways, so I was here as an assistant for about 8 years, maybe 9, maybe 8 seasons, 9 years. They all run together. They were all fun. And when we got here in 2017, there's 317 Division I women's volleyball teams. And in 2016, Louisville was coming off of a season where they were ranked 189th. And that's hard to do at a Power 4 because there's a lot of group of 5 and non-Power 4 teams that they beat each other up. And it's hard to get into the 200s. Like you have to lose a lot to do that. We were 189. And we came in, and I remember coming from this Division II, and we had our first practice, and I told Danny, I was like, Danny, our D2 team would crush this team. And I was like, I could plane right back to Sioux Falls. But it was just it was a little bit of organized chaos, and it wasn't that we didn't have some talent. We just didn't have a lot of alignment. And I think that's what we brought right away was, okay, Danny was great at offense at the time. I was known for defense. And then we were able to bring in a younger coach who was a great connector. And we just got in a really good alignment. And we were very fortunate. We had one big transfer that came in. But it's not like we had the entire team leave and we brought an entire team back in. It was alignment. And then it was, again, one key piece that I thought could be an extension of the coaching staff. That was a setter named Wilma Rivera, who's still playing pro to this day. That really brought that group together. If you followed us, 2016, we were ranked 189th. We got here in 2017. It was kind of a miracle season, and we won the ACC. It was one of the biggest turnarounds I've ever been a part of. We finished the season ranked 30th, And it was another big lesson. We won the ACC, we make the NCAA tournament, we go up to Minnesota, we draw, this is another full circle moment, we draw Northern Iowa, and those who follow the program might know where this is going. We draw Northern Iowa at Minnesota, who our girls are like, Northern Iowa, guys, what are they even playing? Missouri Valley, Ohio, I have no idea. We go up there and we get swept by Northern Iowa in the first round of the tournament. And so again, it was a humbling experience because we thought, hey, we're a Power Four, we won the conference. And so Northern Iowa, the head coach of that team at the time, Bobby Peterson, who was the mother of one of our best players, Peyton Peterson, who we played 2 years ago at the tournament as well in a really epic battle. But it's funny, the longer that you're in this, the more connections that get made. So from 17, COVID, there was a reference to COVID earlier when everything kind of shut down. COVID, it was such a unique experience outside of just the volleyball. For the volleyball, we had a collection of players that were so internally motivated. It's really hard to peg that in recruiting, but if there's one thing that we ask coaches, it's what's their internal motivation? Like, are they driven to just be great by themselves? Like, they want to be great because of something that drives them inside. And we had a great collection of probably 80% of our team had about the highest internal motivation that you could possibly have. So when COVID happened, all the rules you couldn't do anything with your players. Like, you had very limited time. So if you didn't have a group that was internally motivated, you got passed up. And for Louisville, it had the opposite effect. If you look at 2020, you look at what we've done since, there was a group that really took, it was a kind of, we'll take the credit for recruiting them, but the progress that they made was on their own. They got together and said, hey, here's how we're going to attack this. You could look at that in so many different ways. Everything's changing for us. This is an opportunity. And they took it as an opportunity, and they really pivoted the program. 2021, we go undefeated. We get upset in the semifinal, first ever Final Four. 2022, most of those players left. And I think that's the hallmark of a great leader. All these new players, these younger players that came in, they didn't skip a beat. And in 2022, everybody thought, okay, Louisville's a flash in the pan. We go back to the national championship match again when nobody thought that we could. And just kind of have built from there. But, we found out that, getting good is hard, but it's certainly not as hard as staying good. Because we found out, this year we lost 7 matches, and the court got stormed 7 times when we lost a match. And that didn't happen when we were here in 17. We lost a match to Miami in 17, we shook hands, everybody went home. And now it's like social media, all of that. Every team that beat us last year, their big highlight reel is them beating Louisville. And then again, you can look at that as, okay, pressure or whatever, pressure is a privilege, and that's an opportunity, and it really does drive us to be great. I look at the Sweet 16 match last year, and there's a grieving period that happens. There's rhythms to our year as coaches and in athletics. There's a grieving period to each team. Even if you feel like you have a great year, you're losing seniors, there's people that you spend, of your waking hours, you probably spend 50% of your waking hours with these people, and all of a sudden they graduate and they leave. So there's some loss involved with that. But what helped me this year with the A&M game in particular is, I really rallied around the thought of you have to get more out of it than it took from you. And the A&M game took a lot from me. It was a hard game, felt like we had it. We had a group that deserved to win that. But what we took from that is a lot more than it took from us. It was a devastating loss. It stuck with us. But because it stuck with us, we had our first practice of the year right before I came over here in the new year. And the motivation within this group, like that group is training right now to be excellent as if they were about to play the biggest match of their life tomorrow. And sometimes success is tough, where it's like, hey, have you win it all, or you have this great year? We say, hey, we overachieved. That first practice doesn't feel like that. It kind of feels like, hey, look what we did. This practice felt a lot more like, look what we're about to do. Look what we're going to do. And so I'm really excited about what we have coming forward. A couple of quick things that I'll say, just being honored to be in such a room with such, we're all leaders. And we impact so many people. A couple of things that I think we do really well in our organization that I hope maybe one little tidbit that you can take and say, oh, maybe this works in my walk of life. But I talked on it earlier. I think one of the biggest guiding principles for us is trust with transparency. And one of the ways that we do this, I would challenge you in whatever walk of life you're in to think what this might look like. But for us, it's pretty easy with our players. Our biggest currency is playing time. So it's like, you can tell me what you want, coach, but like if I'm not playing, you're not giving me much currency. And everybody wants it. And we have 18 players on the team. There's only 6 on the court at a time. There's 7 starters. So that's over half of the team. If they're not getting a starting job and you don't have a culture that they can be happy, you got over half your team unhappy. So you have to solve that. How do we solve that? We do 4, so quarterly, role clarity meetings. And so a role clarity meeting, there's 2 things in our organization I think are higher than any other team in the country. It's role clarity and role acceptance. And we do it in front of everybody. So my biggest goal is to avoid as many one-on-one meetings that move the needle for players. Because then I start to connect, okay, I met with him, and then now I'm getting more, so now I need to meet, and then I tell my buddy, and then my buddy says, well, I better meet with him. And then there's this never-ending cycle where we chase our tail. So we say, we're gonna do it in front of everybody. So let me use a specific example. Like this year we have 2 setters who are really good. We've got Nael Escobedo is back from last year. She was an honorable mention All-American. She probably should have been a second teamer. She's fantastic. And then we've got Blair Tybo, who you guys will see in a couple months, is a really decorated freshman, and she's really good. And their competition between those two is going to be really tough. And the more one-on-one meetings I have with them, the more space that gets filled, and they're going to fill it because they don't know what goes on in those meetings. So we not only address that with both of them, we do it with the whole team. And we'll go through and we'll say, hey, Blair, you do X, Y, and Z really, really well. Sorry if that's bugging you guys. Let's see if I can fix that. You do X, Y, Z really, really well. What we need from a starter is a little bit more of X. We don't care so much about Y, and then Z is a bonus. So you really need to focus on X. And when X is here, that's going to get you what you want. Nay, you're pretty good at X. That's why you're kind of getting the nod right now. Don't care so much about this, but your expectations are going to be a little bit higher because you're a junior, because you have this experience. So we're going to need more leadership from you. What does that look like? That looks like more touching between plays. That's more eye contact. You're going to be held to a standard where you need to do that. So they understand that, okay, these standards, they might be a little bit different, but we understand why, and we understand what the coaches are thinking. Does that make sense for everybody? So again, when I say that, now I've covered the entire group, where if Blair were to go to the team and be like, man, Dan told me if I just do this, that I'm going to start. It's like, I've already had that conversation with everybody. So the conversations in the training room, the conversations that happen socially, all the information's out there. So those role clarity meetings are really, really helpful for us. Role acceptance is where you better recruit the right players, because that role acceptance, you can explain it as clearly as you want, but it's on them to accept it. And one of the things that we stress with our team is your role is not a box, and it doesn't define you. Your role is what your team needs from you. It's not what you're capable of. And what your team needs from you right now is what's important. What you're capable of, we have time, okay? And we know that you're capable sometimes of even more, but your role acceptance is so important to the success of this group. And so that stuff is really, really important. When I talked about that 07, the culture matters, that Nebraska team did not have that. There was not some role clarity. Everybody thought they were the player of the year. Everybody thought they should be getting the most sets, and nobody knew why they were getting what they were getting. So that kind of evolved from me of just like, we need to avoid as many one-on-one meetings that really move the needle for what we're doing on the court. Now we want to meet about mental preparation, we want to connect socially, anything like that, those are fine. But when we're talking about, hey, you've got this currency of playing time, and I want to get more of it, when I'm going to isolate a meeting to do that, everything we do is to avoid that situation right there. And it's helped our culture a ton. So that's another one, so role clarity and role acceptance. Another one, I'll give you one more, that I think about a lot, and this is from my transition from an assistant coach to a head coach. This was some really good advice I got from a friend. But they talked about how decisions that you make, you need to think before you make those decisions. But they're very similar to hats, haircuts, and tattoos. And the hats, you better make those decisions quick. You wear that hat, and if not, it's not a big deal. You just put a different one on. And if it's a haircut, you're going to have to wear that for a little bit longer. You can try and hide it, but it's a haircut. And then the tattoos, you got to get all the information. You got to make sure that you make the right one, because you're stuck with that one. And so I always remind myself on that, because I do think decisive decision making, and just making, even if it's the wrong decision, sometimes making that fast as opposed to making the right decision too late. I do think it's important that we're really timely with those decisions. But before I do, that really helps me as a head coach is, okay, I'm hiring a new staff member. That's a tattoo. That's not going to be a knee-jerk reaction. We're going to try a new training technique in the gym. That's a hat. If it's a bust, it's not a big deal. Tomorrow we'll come back and put a different hat on. So that's really guided me in my decision making, is kind of maybe classifying those a little bit, because my natural intuition is go, go, go. And it's, okay, if the decision's got to be made, let's make it. If it's not right, change it. I'm always open to learning and growing. But having to take a step back and be like, wait, what type of decision is this? Do we need a little bit more time? Do we need a little bit more input? Has really helped me in kind of how I'm guiding the program at this point. And then the last thing I'll leave you guys with too is something that you'll see in our gym if you come through our practice gym. It's in L&N Arena in the basement. But this is a little bit indicative of the culture that we're trying to build here. And if you've followed our program, we've always created superstars. Superstars. Yes, we've been fortunate in the portal. We've brought maybe one player per year in the portal, but they've always kind of been, the dessert to the meal. Like the steak is still really good. Still from Jeff Ruby's, it's really good. They're like that Jordan shoe, dessert that comes out of Jeff Ruby's. They help, raise the experience, but they aren't the experience. So we have been fortunate in the portal, but we've always had to develop talent and develop superstars. And one of the things we have in our gym is when you walk in, there's a sign that says expect a miracle. And so I just love that mentality of like when I walk in, it's a Tuesday, we're not playing a game this week, expect a miracle. And that's different for everybody. That's okay, I'm working on this technique, or I've got this relationship with a teammate, I'm being looked at, I have to lead. Your miracle could be anything. When you walk out, the back of that sign says you are the miracle. And I think that's really important to understand is that, coming into this gym, there's no magic in this gym. You are the magic. And you have to bring it, and just like the people before you, they were human too, and it was really hard for them. Ordinary people do extraordinary things all the time, and you are the miracle. So I really like that mentality. We really kind of rally around that in our off season, putting that in our practice gym is also where we play. So we take that down when the opponents come. We don't want them walking and seeing that. But that'll be up when we just have our practices, we don't have our matches. So anyways, just a little insight into our team, and in 2026, one of the things for those, who's been to a volleyball match in person? We got, okay, over half of the room. Love you guys, appreciate you guys. So if you followed us closely, last year we were 2-7 in 5-set games. And 5-set games are kind of like overtime in basketball. So, it always feels like when you get there, you should win. You come so far, it's like, it feels like a coin flip. It's not really a coin flip. You have to raise your good. And the 2-7 to me tells me that we have to raise what our good is. So like our great, we know we can beat everybody. We can't always expect to just be great. We've got to be obsessed with raising our good. So one of the things we're doing this off season is we're going to have 5th set Fridays. And we're going to work on all the things that are going to raise our good. And our good is not, you would traditionally think of the super long rally and then the big kill that bounces up. The good is, kind of an unsung, really good pass off of their really good serve. Like that serve probably should have been an ace. You just got a good pass and you gave us an opportunity. Maybe we didn't even win the point, but you raised that good and you gave yourself an opportunity to score more often. So for us, we're really rallying around 5th set Fridays moving into next season. It was interesting because again, we got swept by Pitt one time, but other than that, we only lost in 5. And that really does tell you, we finished the final poll at 9. Our losses only came to teams that were 1 through 8. We beat everybody, and again, it's harder to sleep at night with that. It's like we beat everybody we should, and we didn't knock off nearly enough teams. We beat Stanford, we beat Creighton, some Elite 8 teams, but it wasn't enough, and we're always striving for more. So that's what we're digging into, and that's what makes our spring fun. It's an opportunity. So we're really excited moving forward. For those that follow the team, Kara Cressy was drafted by the Indy Ignite, so she's playing just 100 miles north of here. She was a 5th year with us last year. She's the only starter who graduated. And we brought in, there was a little UK talk earlier, we brought in one of UK's top players, thank you very much, Brooke Ultima, as a transfer, who plays that same position that Kara did. So not to say that that's her spot, but that seems like a pretty good transition there into a pretty good group that we were able to build. I don't believe in the term rebuild. I don't even love the term build. Like I feel like you have your team, and it's your team's time to be great. It's never, next year, when we get that recruit. I learned very early in my career, if you live in that world, you're never going to get to the world you're talking about. You have to live in the moment. One of the things we did with this team that they hated at first, it's a really good example of how resilient this generation is. We've got a video room that's probably like these 2 tables right here. I'm used to standing in front of the video room, we go over the scouting report, we talk about the opponent, and they grab their seat, and Hannah Sherman's going to be a 5th year with us. She's had the same seat for 4 years. But one of the things I want to do, because we had so many returning players from last year, is it had to feel like this year's team. So the first meeting we had was 2 days ago, and everybody put their name on a sheet of paper, they're all in their seats, put it in a hat, and then we bring the hat around, and in your seat you pull a name, and whoever's name that is taking your seat, because it's this year, and it's this team's year. And they hated it. They were like, no, like my buddy, whatever. And then like they got their new seats, and they were like, oh my God, you're next to me. And it was such a flip, and it always reminds me, and again, I'll use the COVID thing as well. When we recruit, before 2020, when I would ask a recruit, like, what's something hard that you've been through in your life? Certain recruits would have had a pretty, impactful thing happen, the death of a family member, a separation of, their parents or something like that. But the majority of them, it would be something that we might think trivial. Oh, my boyfriend broke up with me, or my partner, whatever. after 2020, I mean, they all had to deal with COVID. I mean, their proms got canceled, they had vacations they wanted to do, that got shut down, they didn't see their friends forever. So now this group that we're getting that went through that in a really big time in their life, they are pretty and they're resilient. So again, it's a really small example of the moving of the seats, but it was like the worst thing ever, and then it was like the best thing ever. And it's like this group always surprises me with how fast they're resilient, their grit, their resiliency and their grit pops in. So anyways, as I go through that, I think I went a hair long there. Open it up for questions, correct? Or we got time for a couple? Thanks, guys.
Why don't you tell us about this NCAA college landscape changes, just NIL. I know Louisville is getting volleyball as one of the major funding sources for it.
Yeah, so Josh, give him a high five next time you see him. He's an awesome athletic director. He loves volleyball. But the changing landscape of college sports, I do think the news that we read is always pretty sensationalized when it comes to that, as far as the money that's going around, why people are motivated to make the decisions that they make. One thing I remind myself of too is like we shape our own worlds. So we've always been really fortunate within the volleyball team in particular that that's never been a driving force to get people here. The rev share that you have, the NIL deals that you have, that's a bonus and you have exposure to that. But we've built our culture off of that. But it's certainly one of those things that we have to be really adaptable to. It's kind of, I remind myself that my opinion on it doesn't matter. My adaptability really does. And so, we're a top 10 team. We are supported like a top 10 team when it comes to revenue share and all that. But again, that's not, I think if you put your focus on that, you start to get a program that's what the focus is. Kind of similar to when we're riding a bike. Whatever you look at is where the bike's going to go. Whatever we're looking at is what our program's going to be about. So ours is still about culture. It's still about developing talent, retaining players. And then that's a piece that we have to deal with at times, but it's not football and hoops. Ask the football and hoops coach when they get up here.
Coach, thank you. My name's Craig Mooney. I'm the club treasurer and president nominee. And you mentioned L&N Arena. I've been there one time. It's a very quaint arena. Thanks to my friend Larry Sloan, he gave me the opportunity to attend a game there on his season.
He's got great seats.
Yeah, he's got great seats. So my question to you is, it's a hard ticket to get. There's a few opportunities that you have matches at the Center. Will there be more opportunities for you to play more games at the Center, attract more attendance? And if so, do you prefer playing in a quaint arena like L&N, or is KFC
I call it
better?
Intimate.
Okay.
That's a great question that I get a lot, and I want to stay in my lane with this as far as, because the Center, we got to pay for that, and we got to bid for that, and we got to fight, Kendrick Lamar and people like that for the Center. 2 years ago, we had a bunch of opportunities to get the community out to see us at the Center because we were hosting the Final Four. Now that's a bid process where I hope we get the Final Four back within the next 4 to 5 years. It's very hard to get. So the Center was really behind trying to get volleyball in there as much as possible. I love the Center. I think it's got the big match feel. We have to get 10,000 people in there for it to make it worth it for me. So I don't want to play in there in front of 6,000 people. That's a great number, but at the Center, it starts to sound like crickets, and I want that home court advantage. To your question of L&N Arena is a huge home court advantage. It plays smaller. Volleyball is a really weird sport in the fact that if you've been to Cameron Indoor, that's the only place I've been to that basketball feels like there's a true home court advantage physically, because the bleachers are literally on the sideline. L&N Arena is very similar for volleyball, where the playing area is actually smaller. So it has a huge home court advantage for us because it's harder to play in there as an opponent, because if you only played in the Center, you'd be used to all that space. When you come to L&N, it's pretty much the minimal amount. That's why Larry's seats are so good. I almost subbed you in the other day. But he's like on the court. I mean, he's 10 feet from the ref, where at the Center, he'd be 100 feet. And so that part of the L&N I do love. I don't have the answer how to make it more accessible. With the season ticket holders that we've had, the way that we release tickets to L&N to the general public, I know it's a difficult ticket to get, and if people have solutions for that, I'd love to get more people in there. I think if you get somebody to L&N Arena, they will be a volleyball fan for life. It is, in my opinion, the best place to watch volleyball in the world. The athletes that we have, the access that you have, the view that you have, L&N Arena is I love it. So I would love to do probably about 6 to 7 Yum matches a year. That would leave us another probably 7 to 8 L&N matches per year. To me, that's the right mix, but we got to get 10,000 people at Yum, so bring your friends.
So my question is similar. Ginger Wallace, United States Air Force, retired. So I grew up a UK fan, but I am a huge women's volleyball fan.
Thank you.
Fantastic team. So one of the reasons I know that the Yum Center, we wouldn't want the Yum Center necessarily to be a home arena is because you got to have a neutral site to host the Final Four. And that's why I suppose it was one of the reasons we were able to get the Final Four in 2024.
I didn't even know that. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, however, my question is, has there been any discussion, while I love L&N Arena, I don't have tickets like Larry's, so I go when someone offers them to me, right? Has there been any discussion about perhaps, I know there's been some matches in Freedom Hall on occasion, depending on timing and whatever's going on elsewhere. Has there been any discussion about building a new venue for the volleyball team?
Since I've been here for a decade, thank you for your question, by the way. There's been 3 times that there's been momentum to build a new stadium. And one of them got pretty far. One, Churchill was involved. The other one, obviously, there's a huge lot that's available on now Tom George Way on Floyd Street. 3 different times it's gone through, and then I think it's kind of hit a little bit of a roadblock. So I know that there's a spot there. I could see in my time here something like that happening, but to say there's a concrete plan for that right now, that's not the case, unfortunately. But we're due for another one coming up because it's about every 3 years. They talk about it. I've even seen, drawings of it and everything, and then, Josh is always like, now who's got $10 million? So that usually stops right there. But we'll see what we can do.
Thanks so much for being here. My name is Nick Garner. I wanted to ask you a quick question about the game itself. So one of the reasons I love games in general and volleyball in particular is that those games like volleyball provide you this, it necessitates this kind of like emotional reset when things don't go your way, and it gives you this opportunity to practice emotional regulation. Can you talk a little bit about like how you get your players through the low that comes to that point that doesn't go their way?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's a really good observation of the sport. Momentum is an interesting thing because every play does have a life of its own. We talk about every play as like a goldfish; it's got no memory. But that momentum seems to just like bleed into each play. You can see, volleyball is a game of runs. If we get on a 4 or 5 point run, we typically win that set. So you're always striving to just, hey, can we just get them in a rut for 2 minutes? We got on a run. We try to play up tempo. We got on a run against Illinois in the Yum Center, where I think we scored 6 points in like 90 seconds. We were just running back and trying to serve because, again, you got to look for that opportunity to just jump on them. But as far as the emotional reset, one thing we do in every practice is work on our breathing. And so that's, again, one of the most tried and true things. Today we did triangle breathing. We introduced them to all different types of breath. So today was triangle breathing where we're 3 in, 3 out, 3 for a hold. We do that all together. We've done box breathing, but we just kind of try to meet them where they're at and give them different avenues for that. For some people, it is a breathing thing. For other people, it's kind of almost a buddy, where you've got a buddy who's like an emotional reset for you, where it's like I can high five you in a certain way, or I can kind of grab your shoulder in a certain way. That's like, oh yeah, me and you, like now we're in this, and so we're out of that. But we try to give as many options because, again, players are so different and competitors are so different. So the breathing is huge for us. We do that every day. We make that a part of our routine. It's a great question. It's a huge part of our game.
Thank you, Coach Dan. I want to compliment you on your presentation today. You're a gifted speaker. I do appreciate that. Walt Kuno here. Way back in the day, I guess the girls were 12 years old. I was Katie George's 12-year-old softball coach. So I want to take credit for her running to volleyball. So anyway, question is, how has NIL, and how are you dealing with that? That just seems just so difficult.
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier. It's certainly a part of our sport, and we're blessed that it is a part of our program because our players have such a platform to take advantage of that. NIL is one of those things that the NCAA has such control, and it went so far the other way that Aiko Jones comes to mind. Aiko Jones is currently playing professionally for the Atlanta Vibe. She came to us in 2017. She had a YouTube channel in Jamaica. That was not nothing, but it wasn't like she was making millions of dollars. I mean, she was making $1,000 a month or whatever in Jamaica, because her mom's on the radio and she's a little local celebrity in Jamaica. She comes before the NIL and before all that. She comes to the States and they say, your YouTube channel, you can't do that anymore because you can't make money outside of your sport. You're an amateur. She had created that before Louisville, before she probably even played volleyball. And so it was so far the wrong way that they were taking away opportunities that really had nothing to do with their sport. It wasn't like she was, taking her platform as a volleyball player and saying, I'm going to monetize this, I'm going to make money. That, the NCAA swooped the other way. And now I think we're on the other side of the pendulum. The pendulum swung too far to where now a lot of the NIL, especially when athletes and parents that are kind of uninformed on it, they're like, okay, well, what's my NIL situation? Well, NIL is name, image, and likeness. You have your name right now, but I don't know how much your image and likeness is worth because you haven't played here yet and you're playing high school volleyball and you've got 500 followers on social media and you're not that into it. The flip side of that is like Alexa Hendricks is probably one of the most famous like social media influencers that played volleyball. She played here in 2021 I think was her senior year. But I remember when she built that. She now does that for a living. She's very successful, lives in New York. When she was with us, I mean, she was working on blogs and video editing like constantly, all the time. Like it wasn't like, oh, hey, you're a volleyball player, here you go, this is this thing. So I really liked that we had someone like that and like Iko in our program that showed like, hey, you can make money doing this. This is a great opportunity, but it doesn't just happen. You have to go make it happen. So we take a little bit more of that road with our NIL and the fact that like, man, what a platform you have with Louisville and with being a volleyball player here, but you just showing up, like the money's not gonna show up at the door. Like that's not how it's gonna be here. And that's not how life's gonna be. Like we all know that in the Rotary Club here, like you're gonna have to work for it. So we again, what you focus on is what your world's gonna be shaped by. And so for us, that's how we've kind of dealt with that. But again, you have to be adaptable. Sometimes maybe you have to play the game or nudge it a little bit in a certain way if you want to be competitive, but we always want to stay true to ourselves and keep our culture. Culture is the first thing I talked about, but I mean, culture wins and culture matters. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate that.
Your speaking engagement, our four-way test.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Live by that and you'll win the national championship.
I'm going to tell the girls that tomorrow morning. I said, listen, I got this point. They promised me. You're going to win it all.
Next week's meeting will feature Steve Traeger, the executive chair of the Republic Bank and Trust Company, who will share about their legacy of growth and community commitment. We'll also be recognizing several more new members, and we'll have a table of visiting students from Silver Creek High School's Academy of Business and Finance. It's you or your business, but if you or your business would like to be recognized as a sponsor or co-sponsor of the student table, please talk to Deline. And you can register by noon Monday for the meeting. We'll just do it now on the QR screen. And yes, if you'd like to learn more about Rotary, Lewis is going to be in one of his Rotary table. He has lots to say. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.